The small town of Ashford, in the 1980s, lay beneath a blanket of snow that crunched underfoot with every step. The festive atmosphere filled the streets. Twinkling lights adorned rooftops, and Christmas carols echoed from store speakers. Yet within the walls of the Crawford household, the spirit of Christmas was a mere facade. Inside, the echoes of a fractured home reverberated silently. In the attic, Julius Crawford sat in his room, isolated from the holiday cheer of his family. The walls were covered with posters of rock bands, and his Walkman played a cassette that helped him escape reality. To him, Christmas was a sham, a reason for people to pretend they were better than they truly were. As Julius lost himself in thought, the attic door creaked open. Keny, his younger brother, stepped inside carrying a plate of cookies and a glass of milk.
"What do you want, Keny?"
Julius asked, removing his headphones and glancing up.
"Shouldn't you be downstairs helping Mom and Dad?"
Keny sat on the edge of the bed, carefully holding the plate in his small hands.
"I want to be with you. You're always alone up here."
Julius sighed and grabbed a cookie from the plate.
"You don't need to worry about me. Go downstairs and enjoy your Christmas with them. This isn't my thing."
"But I want to stay with you."
Keny insisted, smiling as he took a bite from a cookie. Before Julius could reply, a thunderous crash shook the house, followed by the sound of their mother crying. Keny stood up, startled, but Julius quickly stopped him, placing the headphones back over his ears and gently pushing him toward the bed.
"Stay here, Keny. Don't move. Eat your cookies and don't come out until I'm back."
Julius left the attic, his heart pounding as he hurried down the stairs. In the living room, he found his mother kneeling on the floor, picking up shards of a broken glass. A bruise marred her face, partially hidden by her hair. Their father stormed out the front door, his hand bloodied and his face contorted with rage. Julius rushed to his mother's side.
"Why do you keep putting up with this?"
he demanded, helping her gather the glass shards.
"It was an accident,"
she said, her voice trembling.
"I tripped, and—"
"Don't lie to me. We both know what's happening here, Mom."
But she didn't answer. She simply turned her gaze away, trying to hold back tears as she continued picking up the broken pieces. That night, Julius couldn't sleep. The memory of the blow and his mother's cries kept him wide awake. In Keny's room, the soft snores of his younger brother reminded him of his responsibility to protect him. Shortly after midnight, a noise from the living room broke the silence. At first, Julius thought it was his father stumbling back home drunk. But as he listened to the heavy, deliberate footsteps, he knew something wasn't right. As Julius got up, Keny also woke. The boy heard the sounds and, excited, whispered,
"It's Santa. I knew he'd come."
Without waiting for a response, Keny dashed down the stairs. Julius followed, shouting,
"Keny, wait."
When Julius reached the living room, he froze. Standing by the Christmas tree was a tall, hulking figure dressed in red. Its suit was tattered, as though it had been rotting for years. The once white trim had turned yellow, and the cracked black boots looked ancient. But the most terrifying thing was its face, pale, wrinkled skin stretched over a misshapen skull, and its eyes glowed faintly red. Keny, unafraid, walked closer.
Santa. I knew you were real.
He said with an innocent smile. The figure turned slowly toward Keny, tilting its head. Its voice was rough and guttural, with an eerie echo.
Of course, I'm real, Keny. I've always known you've been a good boy.
Keny stopped just a few steps away.
You really know my name?
Santa nodded, letting out a sound that was half growl, half laugh.
I know the names of all the good children, and also the bad ones.
Julius finally snapped out of his shock and stepped between Keny and the creature.
Stay away from him.
Santa studied Julius with a twisted grin.
Julius. You're not on my list. You haven't been a good boy.
I don't care what you say.
Julius shot back, his voice steady.
Keny, go upstairs now and lock the door.
Scared, Keny obeyed, bolting up the stairs and slamming his bedroom door shut. The creature advanced toward Julius, its towering presence filling the room with dread.
You're standing in my way, Julius. That's a mistake.
Julius's eyes darted around the room, landing on the fireplace poker. Without hesitation, he grabbed it, his fingers trembling as they gripped the cold metal. He barely had time to turn before Santa loomed over him, his glowing red eyes boring into him, his breath reeking of decay.
If you try anything.
Santa growled, his mouth twisting into a grotesque grin.
You'll regret it.
Without a second thought, Julius swung the poker with all his might, striking the intruder in the side. The impact landed with a dull thud, but instead of a cry of pain, Santa laughed. A deep, raspy laugh that reverberated through the walls of the house. Santa let out a booming cackle that seemed to shake the very foundation of the home. Then, with unnatural speed and jerky movements, he lunged at Julius. Julius barely managed to dodge the first attack, striking the creature again with the poker. But hitting Santa felt like striking solid stone. The creature staggered back a single step, but the grin never left its face.
Oh, Julius.
Santa sneered, his voice dripping with malice.
You shouldn't have done that. Is that all you've got, Julius?
Santa growled, his lips twisting into a mocking sneer.
Do you think a simple fire poker can stop me?
Julius stumbled back. His chest heaving as fear gripped him. Suddenly, Santa removed his red hat with a slow, almost ritualistic gesture. Beneath the fabric, his head began to change shape. His already grotesque face elongated, the skin tearing to reveal dark, oozing flesh beneath. Twisted horns sprouted from his skull, and his jaw dislocated, unveiling rows upon rows of jagged, razor-sharp teeth. This was no longer Santa Claus. It was something far worse, an abomination that defied reason.
What are you?
Julius stammered, retreating toward the staircase. The creature's unnatural grin widened, its dagger-like teeth gleaming in the dim light.
The true face of Christmas, Julius. Kindness comes with a price, one you've never paid.
Julius's heart pounded in his chest as he turned and bolted up the stairs, two at a time, desperate to reach Keny's room. His brother's voice echoed down from above,
Julius.
calling his name, laced with sobs. But just as Julius reached the halfway point of the stairs, a massive, deformed claw clamped around his ankle. Julius screamed as he was yanked backward. He crashed onto the steps, pain shooting up his spine. Desperately, He twisted around and swung the fire poker he still clutched, but the creature barely flinched.
Let me go!
Julius shouted, kicking frantically with his free leg. Santa loomed over him, those empty, glowing red eyes filled with macabre amusement.
Not so fast, Julius. It's time to settle your debts.
With a single, brutal motion, Santa hurled Julius down to the living room floor. Julius struggled to his feet, but the creature closed the distance in seconds, pinning him to the ground with inhuman strength. Its clawed hand wrapped around his throat and its rancid, scorching breath washed over his face. Above them, Keny stood frozen at the staircase railing, tears streaming down his face, terror etched into his wide eyes.
Julius!
He screamed, though his legs refused to move. Santa tilted his head upward, as if savoring the scent of the boy's fear. His grotesque smile grew even wider.
Don't worry, little Keny.
He said, his voice echoing like a sinister chorus.
You're a good boy. But bad boys need to learn their lesson.
With a violent motion, Santa lifted Julius by the neck and hurled him into the Christmas tree. The tree toppled, exploding in a cascade of shattered ornaments and flickering lights. Julius gasped for air as he tried to rise, but his strength was leaving him. Every instinct screamed for him to run, but there was nowhere to go. From beneath the fallen tree, Julius's gaze found Keny, still frozen at the railing, his small hands covering his mouth.
Go! Lock the door! Don't look back!
Julius shouted with the last of his strength. Keny hesitated for a moment before bolting toward his room, slamming the door shut behind him. Julius let his head fall back against the floor, a faint sense of relief washing over him. Keny would be safe, for now. The creature loomed over him again, its grotesque form blocking out the faint glow of the remaining Christmas lights.
Christmas isn't for rebels, Julius.
Santa's voice was a venomous whisper, filling the room with a chilling finality. Then, Santa attacked with brutal ferocity, his massive claws tearing into Julius. Blood stained the floor as Julius gasped for air, his body convulsing under the onslaught. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the stairs. Their mother appeared, her face pale as she took in the horrific scene. She screamed, the sound breaking through the oppressive silence. Moments later, the front door burst open. Julius's father stormed in, his face twisted with shock and anger as he saw his wife's terror. His eyes followed her gaze to the wreckage of the Christmas tree, and the monstrous figure towering over their son. Without hesitation, he charged at the creature. But before he could make contact, Santa vanished, leaving nothing behind but Julius's lifeless body. On the floor, clutched in Julius's trembling hand, lay a small gift wrapped in festive paper. A single tag hung from it, smeared with blood. It read, "Merry Christmas."